Social Enterprise Scotland Wednesday webinar. I'm delighted this week to be able to, I guess, share with you some news about what Social Enterprise Academy have been doing in terms of helping to support people through, I guess, the current situation. I feel like we're constantly talking about the current situation. Hopefully it won't be current for too long, but as we've all adapted, I guess, to a new way of working, training courses, I guess, have changed quite dramatically, David, in terms of how you've had to pivot and look at the work that the Academy are doing. So I'm not going to witter on about what I think you've done, because you know it better than I do. I was just going to say, do you want to kind of just start off really and talk us through what the Academy have done, what it is that you're now offering to social enterprises, and maybe once you've done the formal presentation, if there's a few questions coming through. I've certainly got one, I think, that I'd like to ask, if I can, around leadership at this time. But I'll hand over to you for now.
Many thanks, Naomi. And if I'm a little bit quiet, just let me know or put a message in the chat. I seem to have picked up a bit of a throaty thing. I don't know how I've managed that in isolation, but there we go. So just to introduce myself, my name's David Bryan. I've worked for Social Enterprise Academy for about 11 years now, and my kind of main role is managing our operations in the north of Scotland. And I think when all the COVID thing kicked off, the chief exec sort of charged me with getting the immediate response up and running. I think he knows that I'm quite happy to try new things and be a little bit adventurous and push the boat out. So I've been delighted to help lead on that. So I've just got a little presentation which really explains what we do and how we've done it. But I'm really interested to hear from you guys in terms of exactly what else do you need? Where are you at? Does this stuff speak to where you are? And if not, then let us know and we'll respond to that. So that, as it says, it's very much about responding to needs. That's where we're at. So with the starting point was this VUCA thing. You might have come across this notion of a VUCA world: volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. For those who haven't, it was created back in the days of the Gulf War by American soldiers to communicate to people, other American soldiers who had just come out of the Gulf, what to expect, that they were entering a world that was volatile, it was uncertain, complex situations, ambiguous situations. And this phrase was applied to enterprise world, the business world, over the last few years, that as we're in a changing time with technological disruptors and all the rest of it. But what's become clear, as Naomi was saying, that this new reality is characterized by VUCA. We truly are in a VUCA world now. So we were really thinking about, well, how does our sector respond? How does the third sector, enterprising third sector, respond? And one of our facilitators, who you might know, Anne Houston, put a blog together, and she said, well, we respond to the volatile and the volatility by thinking carefully about our values. We respond to the uncertainty by thinking about us. Who is us? Who is our community? Who are our clients and our stakeholders? Who is the us that we need to think about in this uncertain world? The complexities we respond to by having a caring approach. And I think that's really important, that's the first thing that we think about when things do get complex, is how can we best care for those people in our communities, in our families, in our organizations, and so on. And the ambiguity we deal with in an enterprise sense by being agile, by being able to, these wonderful words, flex and pivot. And I think that just means operate in a different way whilst being aware of our values and our responsibilities in terms of us and caring. So this theme of VUCA runs through a lot of the stuff that we've been offering and that we are offering. So our initial response was, first of all, to create an opportunity in what we call peer response groups for people to come together and really just think, well, what's just happened? Go through that Kubler-Ross change curve of, first of all, accepting that we're in a new reality, and then starting to make sense and then action plan in this new reality. And we shouldn't just assume that that's going to happen automatically. What we think is that people in the social enterprise world are very good at adapting to new realities because we're used to change. We're used to coping with contracts coming and going, or or funding that appears or it doesn't appear when you think it is. So I think as a sector, we responded to that quite well, but it was still quite useful for people to link up with each other in these peer response groups to hear what each other was doing and not feel isolated. We've been offering fully funded coaching sessions. I should say everything that I talk about is available at no cost. Cost's not a barrier at this point at all. The coaching has been a really good take up. We've had 70 or 80 people across Scotland benefit from one-to-one coaching sessions. These are on telephone or on Zoom or Skype, whatever suits you. It's non-directive. It's enabling you to solve the challenges that you're facing yourself. And very many of those 70 or 80 folks have been people who have been running sort of small social enterprises, feeling a bit isolated. You know, they're not coming into contact with their teams or their peers in a face-to-face sense. And they've really appreciated the opportunity just to talk through where they're at and get some sort of non-directive support. Sometimes it's been a little bit more mentoring, but it's generally been very much non-directive. That's ongoing, and you can request a coaching session by visiting our website, socialenterprise.academy, and we'll set that up within no time at all. The format is 2 60-minute coaching sessions. If you want more, if it's valuable to have more, we can make that happen. Last thing I want to mention is a resilience blog, which is on our website. This is the last thing in terms of what we've been doing. It's called Inner Gold. It's written by one of our facilitators called Karen Dark, who's a particular sort of lived experience in terms of managing change. She had a rock climbing accident, which meant that since 21, she's lived a life on wheels in a wheelchair. And it's not stopped her in terms of becoming an adventurer, an athlete, and also working in this sort of space of managing change. She's worked with oil companies, and more recently, you know, she's worked in terms of enabling people to develop their own resilience. Her blog series, which is available as a podcast as well as a written blog, is really worth listening to. The way that she relates her everyday, the way that she relates her experiences, which are unique in terms of some of the journeys she's had, and some of the adventures she's been on. She relates that to everyday terms that we would understand, and really brings the relevance of that home to us. It's also challenging in the most in the most supportive way. So, you know, if you are feeling a bit low, have a look on the website, our website, for that Inner Gold blog series. It's really powerful stuff. So what we're currently rolling out, and we've got a few cohorts of this program up and running now. There's a program called Managing Change. So we're combining a learning platform and Zoom. The program runs over a course of about 3 weeks. There's a 1-hour Zoom introduction and tech check, if you like. And then there's a 2-hour Zoom session the following week. And then a couple of weeks later, another 2-hour Zoom session. This is augmented by about 7 or 8 hours of online learning, which you do at your own time on the learning platform. And that's really easy to access. When you book for the course, you get your username and password, and you can drop in and drop out. It's based around this theme of VUCA, runs through this and the 2 other, if you like, response programs that they tackle the question, as you can see at the bottom there. One of the questions that people are asking is, how do I manage my organization through this period of unprecedented change, which might involve some really difficult planning and decisions? That's a key question, and this program responds to that. The next program that we're also now recruiting for and offering, I think the first cohort start this week, is called Leading Remotely, and that similar structure, 2 days equivalent, if you like. If you're in the room, it's equivalent of a 2-day program. As I say, it's 5 hours commitment online. And the question that addresses is, how do I lead my team of staff or volunteers or directors without being there in person, without physically being there? How is leading an organization different? The last program, which is going to be launched at the end of this month, speaks to the next question, which is, how do I flex my organization's income streams so that we can continue to deliver on our social impact, so that we might change as an organization, We might well downsize, we might upsize, who knows? We might work in different ways. Costs are going to be different. How can income streams be different so that we can continue to deliver on our social impact? And that particular program starts by thinking about, well, what is it that we're trying to achieve? What are our assets? How can we work in ways that enable us to deliver on those assets? And also, of course, make the sort of books balance at the end of the year as well. So those are the three programs: managing change, leading remotely, rebuilding income streams. They're live now. You can book onto them on the website. They're technically through the Just Enterprise portal, so it's part of that offering. It's fully funded and it's available for anybody in the sector in Scotland. All welcome. We've got some things coming up as well, and these things we're just about to launch. They'll go live, probably all of these, over the next few weeks. First of all, Bold and Brave. This is kind of sector leaders working together. We're just chatting with Naomi about how sectors that have got really kind of well-established support organisations. We were talking about the great work that Community Recycling Network or Reuse Network for Scotland have been doing. For sectors that don't have those kind of organisations, or perhaps in partnership with those organisations, we really want to bring together people working in the same sector to enable collaboration, share best practice and ideas, but work out perhaps what's their sector going to look like? What's the shape of it going to look like? One of the organisations, one of the sectors we're going to work with is the sort of Museums and Galleries Scotland, Historic Environment Scotland. We're going to be working with them to support their members to work out how on earth is that sort of heritage sector going to respond? What's it going to look like? Secondly, we're going to be inviting organisations that would like their leadership team, their management team, or their directors, or both, to come together for some facilitated forward planning for the board, which really looks at the strengths, looks at the assets, and then uses tools like Social Business Model Canvas to work out what their organisation will look like in the future. And the strength of this is that it's for a single organisation, so you could be very open. You can you can be transparent about where the organisations are at, maybe even in relation to competitors or uncertainties. We can be very open because it's just the one organisation, whereas, for example, a Rebuilding Income Streams is a number of organisations coming together. Now, not everybody's got the opportunity to spend time during the day online. If you've got caring commitments, as many of us have at the moment. So we've got a couple of what you might call asynchronous programs, things that you just tap into whenever it suits you. We're putting together a kind of playlist of online learning resources, video, audio, short articles, really stimulating content, which we're calling a resilience playlist, which adds up to about 60 minutes of experiencing and reflecting. We're going to add in a drop-in discussion group as well, whereby there'll be an opportunity once you've done the 60-minute resilience playlist to just call into a Zoom call and have a chat with folks and just share thoughts and experiences. But that's open to anybody at any time, fit it around your own other commitments. Similar to that, the Learning Spotlight is about sharing a single article or video or bit of audio, which is emailed to you twice a week. And part of the idea is that you might want to use it to enable the connection with volunteers that are out of the business, or furloughed staff, or even directors. Maybe you normally have directors popping into the organisation in a physical sense on a regular basis. That's not now happening. So part of the idea is this: you might use it for your own benefit, but you might also want to forward these items to your remote staff, volunteers, directors, and encourage and use that as a basis for a discussion. So you might just want to say, look, this is really interesting. Have a look at this, and we'll have a call. We'll have a Zoom call or whatever on Friday afternoon, and just see what you all feel about this, and does it speak to some of the challenges and issues that you're facing. So it's great for sharing. It's something that can enable that interaction. Last thing is that we've we've created a learning library with over 2,000 leadership and enterprise resources. We're doing this in partnership with an established provider internationally, which means that we're able to, this truly is global quality stuff, updated daily, beautifully curated, really easy to do a search, and we're making that available to our learners as well. So that'll be sort of going live very shortly too. We've already sort of piloted it with a few folks, and they've just said this is great, this is so useful, and it's all about your ongoing CPD really as individuals, as I suppose taking responsibility for your own learning and development, and just using it to tap into whether it's well-being or resilience or coaching approaches or whatever it might be, whatever you feel that you would like to just work on at this current time. So those are all coming up within the next few weeks. If you'd like to know more about them, let us know. We can kind of take bookings if you like for the first two. We can do that now. Just let us know, and we can make that happen for you. So I just thought I would just finish with a little quote really before we have a wider chat. In times of change, the learners will inherit the earth, whilst the learned will find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. I think we all understand that the world has changed permanently, hopefully for the better. And if we had more time, we could talk about what we're planning for the autumn, which is about this notion of stop the share, and about this notion that what we can do is to start envisioning a new reality, a new society. And I won't say very much about this, but it's very interesting that Britain was remade after the Second World War. Things like the National Health Service, but the National Park System, and the support for agriculture that meant that we weren't in danger of food shortages, and you can go on and on. The statutory planning system was all created during the war year. They visioned a new society, one that was free of the abject poverty of the 1930s. And there's a challenge there for us to do that at this point in time. I think the social enterprise community, the scope, perhaps when the initial COVID, lockdown has ended, that to start to think, what does this look like? How do we want society to be different? And is this an opportunity, maybe an opportunity that we missed in 2008 with the banking crisis, when we just recreated the same economic system, which has continued to fail society and the environment ever since? Is this an opportunity to do things differently? That will be coming in the autumn. That's something that we really feel strongly that the scope to do. But certainly I would say that this is the time for all of us to sort of stay as learners. And if we don't stay as learners, then we'll be, as the quote said, beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. So with apologies for waffling on, thank you for listening, and yeah, really interested to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, David. That was, again, really interesting. I think we've all suddenly gone through quite a steep learning curve in the last few months, as we've all even adapted just to doing things online and looking at all of that. We're forever learning, I think, as organisations. There's a few things I think certainly at the end as well that you said that were quite interesting around looking at how do we come out of this and perhaps look at how we do things differently. I know we've been involved with some conversations with the Academy as well around looking at economic recovery moving forwards and responses we've done to government. And yesterday we've actually just published, we're doing a number of events around our AGM called Time for Change, really trying to get a sense of that, I guess, environment that we're all operating in, and looking at how do we envisage our future and what do we want that to be. But that's probably a discussion for another day. It's quite a massive topic. We can perhaps get you back in the autumn as well, as you're looking to do more around that work. I got some interesting questions just around, I guess, leadership. It's been quite a challenging time for us all, whatever situation we've found ourselves in the last few months. What do you think have been the challenges around leadership at these times for organisations, and how do you think they've adapted? And what have leaders learnt, and how have they adapted during this crisis?
Yeah, it's been a huge challenge in terms of leading remotely, and obviously one of the programs addresses that directly. And when you have a remote team, the level of trust has to be enhanced, has to be increased, and that trust will be repaid if your team are motivated. And people are motivated not primarily by financial remuneration, not by pay. We need to be paid, of course we do. But what really motivates people is being trusted, to be enabled, to go out there and work on something that they themselves feel that they're good at and they're passionate about, and being trusted. And one social enterprise leader who's very prominent said to me once, it was a really neat way of looking at it, he's happy for all of his staff in his very sizable social enterprise to make decisions as long as they're not decisions that might hold the organization below the waterline, decisions that if they went wrong could have some strategic impact. If it's just a decision about do they have a Bedford van or a Luton van, or if it's a decision about, do they have this collection route or that collection route, he wanted them to innovate. He trusted them to innovate. He didn't need to be, they didn't need to have those things run past them. And I think that's even more true in this virtual world. We need to be, leaders need to be giving their teams, that's staff, directors and volunteers, things to do that they know that they're comfortable with. And the things they're less comfortable with, take them away and give it to somebody else who is comfortable with them in the team. So in that way, it's possible to ensure motivation. And if people are really motivated, then those levels of trust will not be a problem in terms of how the opposite organization, exists and in fact thrives in this new reality.
I think trust has been a really interesting one on many levels. I think the team approach, certainly from a trust perspective, we've all had to trust our colleagues, the people who are leading us, to be making some of the right decisions. But actually the other big thing I think I've seen in our sector that's been, and I hope will have a longer term impact, has been the trust between funders and local authorities to the organisations that deliver work. The quick changes that funders have made to lifting restrictions on funding and going, actually, we'd already done all of our checks on you before we gave you the money. You do what you think is now best for your community. And I wonder if that's going to lead to some more longer term changes. Who knows about how funders give out money to organisations? Do they just trust them to do the right thing?
I'd agree that's been a really positive aspect, that all of the funders I'm aware of came out and said, you've got the money, you know what the reality is, you know what's going on the ground, the way you go and use it. And I've been hugely inspired by past learners that we're in touch with who've, you call them up and they're in the middle of making 110 macaroni cheese meals to deliver to that community. And when they're chatting to you, they're still staring at it, otherwise it'll all burn to the bottom. And this notion that the local communities have just stepped up. They haven't looked for permission, and they haven't needed to be asked. They've just gone ahead and done it. And I think that's cracking. It's superb. And the funders, I think, have recognised that they need to flex. And to be fair, Scottish Government's done exactly the same. The message that's been coming out to us from Scottish Government is flex, meet the needs, the resources that are available, you know what you're doing, off you go and make it work. So there's been that level of trust there as well, and as you say, yes, it would be great to think that in the future we wouldn't need to be quite so prescriptive when funding rounds come around, that it has to hit this, that and the other bell and whistle, and that actually we can just think about, well, okay, you're a trusted partner in this community, do something good around X, off you go and tell us how you get on. Mm-hmm. That would be perfect.
We'll see, eh? I'm just thinking, one of the other questions I'd written down is, we're all looking at one of our sessions, I know that we're running at the end of June, is looking at the future work environment, and you touched a bit about remote working and helping support people through that. How do you think the work environment's going to change as we come out of COVID?
Yeah, well, certainly it will never be the same. The need that we feel to travel for kind of regular meetings, and I must say I've kind of abandoned a lot of my regular monthly trips to Edinburgh in favour of using Zoom, over the last year or so when the technology seemed to improve a lot. So I think I was maybe a little bit ahead of this, but I think what we do miss is coming together maybe in kind of conferences where you can just have really interesting conversations with really interesting people that you didn't know, half an hour ago, sort of thing. I think that's still valuable and important, because social capital is a danger that our social capital kind of remains static, that it doesn't continue to expand. And I think, as most of us know, social capital is absolutely key for us as individuals, but also for organizations. So I'd like to think that in going forward, we'll still be traveling and meeting face to face, but it'll be for the kind of business development, engaging with thought leaders, rather than the kind of run-of-the-mill thing that we've discovered that we can do online.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, actually. One of the comments that's just come through has been around the issue of trust being something that's quite interesting, and will it lead to more innovation? I think, we often see, I guess you hinted at it, did we really use the 2008 crisis to innovate? But will we use this opportunity to really innovate and try new things and trust new partners as well? I think that's been, I know in my own community where I live, it's traditionally been a group of our retired community that have been the volunteers. And in this situation, they've had to step back a little bit and let new people in. And I think that's quite interesting, not just innovation in terms of new things we've had to do, but allowing new people into an environment. And we look at some of the other issues that are happening at the moment globally and thinking, how do we really address some of the issues about involving everyone in our community? And certainly from an education perspective, one of the big debates is always around, we've gone into learning and so much has gone online, and how do we make sure that people aren't left behind? So I just wondered if perhaps as one of your questions, what's been some of the thinking from the Academy about how you make sure you're still able to operate and give learning to people that might not have the same Zoom access and online access?
Yeah, it's something that we've been really thinking a lot about with our partners in Africa, where access to broadband isn't always great. Broadband's available, but it's very expensive. And also people might have smartphones, they're fairly ubiquitous, but things like tablets and laptops, less so. So yes, and in fact, when we designed those 3 programs, Leading Remotely, Managing Change, Rebuilding Income Streams, I deliberately designed them in such a way that they could be offered as entirely online with just maybe a telephone, tutorial type discussion with kind of sub-Saharan Africa in mind. Because frankly, when you're designing a new program, it's not that much work to just think, well, okay, that bit that was on Zoom, how would we do it differently if we couldn't all be on Zoom? So you're absolutely right. There's some amazing stuff going on in terms of tech innovation in places like Africa. In fact, we've got our partners in Zambia, amazing social enterprise called Bongo Hive. They're leading on this, and they're really trying to work out how in agricultural communities tech innovation can sort of unlock the challenges of peripherality, rurality that still hold those places back. There are ideas developing about having a sort of online e-health sort of health passport that you might hold on your phone, cloud-based, that whatever hospital or medical provider you went to, you present your medical history. We don't have this in the UK because we've got I can say this because my wife works in this area, an ineffective e-health system that is fragmented between hospitals and GPs. Just lots of examples of how actually, when we address a problem from scratch, when we've got a blank piece of paper, it's possible to come up with solutions that are far better than if we're just trying to tweak an existing
Uh-huh.
system. And I think we can apply that same thinking to our own situation as well. So, sorry, that's probably a really roundabout way of answering your question, but yes, we are aware that not everybody has got access to great broadband, great tech. So we're trying to build that in, is the short answer.
No, that's good. I mean, I know even the way we're doing our webinars, we record the sessions because with childcare or different needs, I have to personally keep my dogs out of the room during these sessions when we're all working from home. And actually, it's making sure that people can access these at different times that's really important. So, yeah, really interesting session today. Perhaps we get you back on in the autumn, David, and you're able to tell us a little bit then about what the Academy are doing in terms of some of those debates. I don't know if there's any last questions just coming through. I always like to do a little check before we cut off.
Yeah, I think just the last thing just I'd like to say is that one of our facilitators, one of our partners in Malaysia, right at the start of all this chaos, if you like, he said to us that when you're in a storm, the initial response is to build a shelter, and that's quite right. We need to build shelters. Once you've built the shelter, you then need to build a windmill to capture the power of the storm and take that energy and to turn it into something good. And I think that's what we need to be doing in the sector. What's already starting to happen, to be fair, is that we're capturing